Welcome to Boomer Between the Games, presented by Xfinity. I'm your host, Boomer Esiason. Now, later on, we're going to take a look back at that great victory for the Dallas Cowboys over the Pittsburgh Steelers, and then we'll look ahead to some great NFL Week 11 matchups. But first, let's get to our guest. He's Brian Jones. He's a former NFL linebacker, a college football analyst on CBS Sports Network, and, of course, the co-host of Gio and Jones on CBS Sports Radio. It's always great to have you, Brian, so let's get right into it. We got some great games to look back on. First and foremost, the Dallas Cowboys and just how well Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott are playing and just how well they've played on the road, especially that game last week. I don't know about you, but what I look for in a quarterback is poise, and poise under pressure and poise on the road, and having to put up a lot of points against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Dak Prescott once again passes the test, the eye test, the reality test, all the checklists, if you want, that he is an up-and-coming superstar quarterback.
Boom, always good to be with you, man. I agree with you. That poise and that confidence that Dak Prescott just exudes. You can't tell whether or not he threw a touchdown or he did threw an incompletion, because his demeanor never changes. And he was the same way when he was in college at Mississippi State. And the guy's just been a joy to watch, and how quickly he's picked up the game and stayed within himself.
I think the most demanding physical position in football is the running back. And when they drafted Ezekiel Elliott, number 4 overall in last year's draft, I think they knew that they had something special, that maybe this was the second coming of Emmitt Smith. But now I got to believe, after watching him against this Pittsburgh Steelers defense, doing what he's doing week in and week out, that he's not only propelled himself into the conversation about Rookie of the Year, but also overall NFL MVP.
No doubt, Boom. He's in that conversation as far as league MVP. And what you have to like about this young man is his patience. Everyone was talking about the lack of patience during the beginning of the season. Now he's setting up those blocks. It's one cut, and he's up the field. You love his burst. You love the power with which he runs with. He finishes those plays. He doesn't try to run out of bounds. He's trying to run through would-be tacklers.
All right, Brian, let's take a look back at Seattle's big win over New England on Sunday night, and what a game it was, and what an atmosphere it was at Gillette Stadium. The mutual admiration society between Rob Gronkowski and Earl Thomas, the safety, who hit Rob right in the chest and actually punctured one of his lungs. And, you know, the interesting thing is Rob Gronkowski said, that's a great football player. That's how you deliver an NFL hit on the field, legal, hard, and that's the way the game was meant to be played.
Game-recognized game, as you said. Both of these guys are tremendous players, perennial all-pros. And as far as Seattle and tackling, they've been at the forefront of borrowing from the rugby model. That's how they teach tackling there at that organization. So they and others who are now taking the lead, or are taking from what they've begun there at Seattle, are learning to tackle the right way.
So here's the other thing. The Redskins, huge win over the Vikings. Vikings are still reeling. Kirk Cousins is playing, I think, lights-out football. And it's nice for him because he signed a one-year deal. Basically, it's a $19.5 million deal. I'm happy he's making that much money. But I think he's proven to the Redskins and everybody else in the NFL that he is a legitimate starting quarterback. I put him on the plane of like an Andy Dalton. He's not a top-tier quarterback, but he's so much more than just serviceable. He is actually making plays and making a difference.
Yeah, of course. You go back to those first 2 weeks. I don't believe he threw a touchdown pass in those first 2 weeks. Had a few interceptions, but he has righted the ship, as has that team, and they're clearly in the mix as far as the NFC East is concerned. And yeah, he is the leader. He's a vocal leader. He's a guy that has fun. He's energetic. He goes out there and plays that way. No one was having fun when you get off to an 0-2 start, but they kept believing in themselves, kept working hard, and he's a guy that can make all the throws. Sometimes they're ill-advised throws, but we haven't seen that many of those here lately. So if they can continue with that running game, that's been a welcome assist to him as well.
Time for our Twitter question of the week, presented by Xfinity. This is from @JoeBrewCom92. Joe wants to know, after watching the Philadelphia Eagles beat Atlanta in Week 10, do you think the Eagles will play like they did to start the season or continue to be up and down? #BoomerBTG. Here's the thing. Everybody wants to talk about Carson Wentz. They want to talk about wide receivers who drop footballs. You know, they lost Lane Johnson to a PED suspension for 10 games. That was a huge loss in the offensive line. Why are they so good? I still say it's because of Jim Schwartz's defense. This is one of the best defensive lines in football. This is also a defense that is a top 5 defense in the NFL. Now, they're going to have their hands full this week, certainly going out to Seattle. But at the end of the day, Philadelphia is a playoff-worthy team, and they're only going to go as far as Carson Wentz takes them.
Yeah, and I think the league has figured out Carson Wentz. He's not throwing up those gaudy numbers like he was the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season, and that's okay because you're right. That defense is going to have to carry them. Even the Dallas game that they lost, they made Dak Prescott look like a rookie. Finally, in that game, he appeared to be a rookie. He came through in the overtime period, though. But Jim Schwartz has done a wonderful job. He's reminding us of how he was able to get that head coaching job in this league from his days as the Titans defensive coordinator when he had some stout D's out there on the field, and once again, they're doing the same thing. They're one of the toughest in the league.
Hey, if you have a question for us, tweet at us with hashtag BoomerBTG, and maybe we'll use your tweet on the show. All right, Brian, time to look forward real quickly. The Ravens are going to go visit the Dallas Cowboys. The Ravens are the number 1 overall defense in football. Some would say it's because of who they've played this year. They played the Cleveland Browns twice, the Jacksonville Jaguars, so not some of the great offenses. But to me, it's the Ravens' defensive line against the mammoth offensive line of the Dallas Cowboys. Give me your 2 cents on just what the Ravens need to do defensively to try to slow down Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott.
Well, as great as Dak Prescott has been, the MO is still the same. It hasn't changed. You want to stop the run. So stop Ezekiel Elliott, make Dak Prescott beat these guys, and while he showcased that he has the ability to do that, you got to make him do it and prove it again. You got Brandon Williams there at the big nose tackle position, and you got C.J. Mosley, one of my favorite kids in college out of Alabama, who's definitely finding himself.
It's going to be a great game. It is a huge defensive line versus a huge offensive line. I think Steve Smith, much like Cam Chancellor was for Seattle, that's who Steve Smith is for Baltimore's offense.
Yeah.
Its attitude, its intensity. Should be a great, great weekend of football. Brian, always great to talk to you. Catch us next week, everybody, when guest will be Mike Quick, the former Philadelphia Eagles, and he'll be right here on the show. Have a great week, Brian.
All right, thanks, Boom. Appreciate you.
Thanks for tuning in to Boomer Between the Games, presented by Xfinity. Xfinity X1 will change the way you experience TV.